Good morning. Marhaba. This is quite an opportunity. I really enjoy the chance to talk to startups, and I see a lot of you in the field. I also see some faces that I recognize. I'm going to just push this back 1 second. There you go. So my name is Zubin Chagpar. I look after the Amazon Web Services business for public sector across the Middle East and Africa. Doesn't sound very startup-ish-y, but I do also have a startup background, if you will. I've made the great decision to invest in startups. They keep me awake at night as I work with them. They're in different fields across startups. I've had the chance to talk to startup enthusiasts on a weekly basis through the Startup Digest, where there's about 50,000 folks there that get to read some things being sent out by great bloggers across the world. And also, I've developed a course on rapid prototyping that I unleash on unsuspecting students as well, too. So a little bit of startup cred. I'm also happy because today I get to wear jeans instead of having to wear a suit as well, too, which is always nice. I was asked to speak about innovation and the culture of innovation at Amazon. I hope this is of interest to you. I'm going to go through this presentation with you, and what we're going to highlight is what is Amazon. I believe that most of you probably have heard of Amazon, which is fantastic, but I'll touch on the actual history of Amazon and how innovation is part of what we do on a regular basis. I'll also touch on what is the culture of innovation at Amazon. And then I'll jump into some of the organizing principles that we use to continue to invent and to develop on behalf of our customers. This slide presentation is getting ahead of me right here. So let me jump right into it. So Amazon itself started in 1994 as a startup. This is not me trying to sell my home, by the way. This is the original home that the startup began in. It's what we call one of those garages. And in those garages, we were actually wrapping up books and sending out. And when I say we, this was the founding team, not me, myself, back in 1994. Very important is, during that time, we were highlighting that what we want to do, and I'm just going to jump right here. This actually came from our shareholder letter from our founder, Jeff Bezos, is that we want to have a day one focus. And this is probably where we can define what innovation means. Innovation has many definitions, but the one that I'll use is that you're constantly changing the status quo. You're not going into a mode of what we call day two, where you're in stasis, where you're just accepting that you might have a great or the best product, you don't change it, you try to continue to develop that in terms of incremental or no updates, and you leave that out there with your customers. We take an approach that our customers are loyal until you don't delight them anymore. And that means on a daily basis, when we wake up, we think about our customers and how we can optimize. Let me highlight that through examples. First of all, in terms of some of the history, many of you probably know Amazon as a bookseller. Anybody bought a book from Amazon? Thank you for that. We're still selling books. They're still available. You can go online today and buy books. And that's how we started. And it allowed us to really test a hypothesis, and I'll show you an example of that later. But the hypothesis was, hey, will people actually buy books online? And it was really easy for us to do that in terms of shipping a book, because they're flat. You can put them into a box. You can send them out as well, too. And an advantage we had as well, too, is that if you looked at a traditional bookstore, they wouldn't have millions of books at their disposal. They would only have a certain amount of shelf space that they could put a book on. But for us, if we put it online, we can actually almost make every single book available and then be able to send it out to a customer, too. So it allowed us to test out a hypothesis and move from there. Today, we're operating in many different spaces, so you can see that we're I'm just going to see the different views here, but this is all good. So you can see that we're doing drone development, video streaming, we've got some grocery delivering, and also in the corner there we have Amazon Web Services, which is the area that I represent as well, too. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. Now, this is what we call a fulfillment center, not a warehouse. It could be called a warehouse, but we call it a fulfillment center, because it has that sort of connotation of constant motion. We're fulfilling our customers' orders in this. And now this is one of our first generation fulfillment centers. It looks pretty neat. If you can see the different objects there, and then we would have people walking through the warehouse, which you can see is quite big, pick up the item that a customer wants, put that into a basket, bring it to a packing area, put that into a box and send it out, which is great. We had very fit fulfillment people because you'd have to walk a lot during the day, sometimes as much as half a marathon a day to get the items. But it's not necessarily optimized. So as we get to our 8th generation fulfillment centers, this is what they look like right now. So you have a mini little robot that has the shelves themselves sitting on top of there. And then the actual robot or the shelf comes to the person who's picking and fulfilling the order. So they don't have to walk as much, but they're getting what they need. They put that into a box. So that's that sort of idea of constantly innovating too. This means that they can focus on the quality of packing the order instead of huffing and puffing around the warehouse to find the specific items for what they're doing. This is another look at how it looks. So that's from our Amazon robotics team. So this is applied robotics, creating solutions that can be deployed in the field in our fulfillment centers. So there's an example. Here's another example of innovating on behalf of our customers. Who's heard about the concept of a minimal viable product? Yeah, I'm seeing some items. And more in the back, so I'm guessing more of the startups are in the back. I see some people waving as well, too. I'm not sure if they're waving to me or just waving that they know about minimal viable products, and it's great to see you, of course, as well, too. We use that concept when we release services for our customers. We call it a minimal lovable product or a minimal lovable feature that we can get out there. So if you're familiar with the Echo, this is a device that you can speak to and you can listen to music, you can do some banking, you can ask facts, you can set up appointments, you can tell the time, and even get the weather as well too, and many more features. It's a community device, meaning that we have developers from around the world, startups, big businesses that are creating features and skills and adding to that. But as we released this a couple of years ago, what we focused on was we focused on a couple of things, but the one delightful one that was picked up was the ability to play music. And people love music. So our customers love that. And then we continue to iterate on that. So that's an example of a minimal viable product or a minimal lovable product. Now, Amazon Go, some of you might have heard about this. Let me ask a question before I explain what this is. How many people here have walked into a store, grabbed an item? Oh, okay, there I got one person who's walked into a store. Thank you for that. Okay, great. Very sharp. Thank you. Walked into a store, picked up an item, put it in their pocket, and walked out. Who's done that? That same gentleman has done that. Security, you might want to pick up those people too. At least keep an eye on them as well too. Well, Amazon Go is a concept store that we've created that allows you to use some of the technologies, cloud-based technologies. It could be artificial intelligence, machine learning, payment systems as well too, to allow somebody like that gentleman over there to be honest, to walk into a store, be identified, pick up an item, and then walk out as well too. And the reason we're doing this is to test out new concepts that remove friction from our customers. Right? It might not seem, it might be a normal concept where you just take your wallet out, you take a credit card, and you go and buy something, and that's fine too. But sometimes you might encounter long lines. You might not be able to find what you're looking for. So in these stores, the idea is that you won't have to go through something that's undifferentiated at the store, where you would go to somebody as a cashier, and they would go and punch in your order and walk out. That's something that can be done with technology. What's even more important is that person who's in that role can take on a more value-added service. They can spend time with their customers. They can maybe develop other areas of focus, like making a sandwich for customers out there, bring new lines of services to their customers as well too. So this is a concept, again, how we're innovating on behalf of our customers, working backwards from our customers. I'm going to use this opportunity to do also a shout out to a startup that I met actually a couple years ago, and I was delighted to see here as well today. They're called Lazy Weight. They're in the corner of the display, pavilion area out there. Lazy Weight is from Saudi Arabia. They won a regional competition to be here today. And what they're doing is they're using technologies in the cloud to build out solutions for their customers, which are restaurants, and their customers' customers, which is the restaurant's patrons, people like you and me going into a restaurant. And I was delighted to hear as they talked about what they're doing, how they're working backwards from the customer. They're saying, well, Zubin, don't you hate waiting to get seated at a restaurant? What if you could just walk in? Similar to that gentleman walking into the store and then walking out with something in his pocket. And so I said, of course, I said yes. And they said, and wouldn't you like to be able to see a dynamic menu that highlights your preferences as well? And I said, that sounds actually pretty good too. And then also work with the waiter or the maitre d' of the restaurant to understand other concepts as well in terms of the menu, the food, or any other items. And I said, hey, that sounds great. They got me on 3 items, and I like dealing with 3s. So he said, so these two gentlemen were explaining this to me. This is Asad and Ajman, 2 identical twins, by the way, so you'll be able to find them out there. I won't say which one is the cooler one of the 2. It's Ajman. But you can find them out there and learn more about what they're doing. So really delighted to hear the startups are taking this approach of working backwards from the customer and learning from their customers as well, too, and congratulations to them. I mentioned that I'll cover the culture of innovation at Amazon. So In terms of how we do it at Amazon, it's not like we're waking up every day and saying we need to be more innovative. We are saying that we need to be customer obsessed. We need to work backwards from our customers. We want to think long term as well too. If you think short term, you're going to get short term results. You think long term, you're going to be there for a while. And we also want to invent and be willing to fail. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later in the presentation as well too. That's a hard thing to do, by the way, to take these risks and fail. It's not easy, but you have to have that ability to take those risks and also be able to be misunderstood for a while, and we'll touch on an example on that as well too. So first on the customer obsession side, this is really our secret sauce, if you will. It's not so secret. I put it up here, presentation. I see cameras coming out. It's a good side here. So this right here, what you're looking at is what we call the Amazon flywheel, or the virtuous circle. And what that is saying right here, this cycle or circle, is that if you provide a service to a customer that they like, they'll use it. If you reduce the price or add features that they're looking for, they'll continue to use it even more. They'll tell their friends. You'll also attract a community around that. You'll get sellers and other folks to come and be part of that community too, and that will help you to also offer more services and drive down the cost. And if you keep doing that, you're going to be around for a while, and this is what we do with all our offerings. We take that sort of approach with our customers as we move forward. Now, another part was the concept of, you're making decisions and thinking long term here. So here's an idea of being stubborn on the vision. So when we come up with a concept, and I'm going to show you an example in a moment, we say, well, why are we doing this? What is the benefit here to the customer? Why are we making this happen? And we stay pretty stubborn on that. But in terms of how or what we're going to do, we're very flexible. And we'll work as teams, we'll work with partners, we'll work with customers to get that right solution out there. So here's an example. If you're familiar with the Kindle, this is an e-reader. To your left, that is the Kindle first generation. And the main, most lovable feature that we added onto this Kindle was the ability to download books through a 3G connection. So you didn't need to use your phone, you didn't need to be on a Wi-Fi, you could just get a book anywhere. And that feature really took off. If you look at the device itself, it is pretty clunky. And this is like, we're talking about 2007, so it wasn't necessarily the most I can't say the word. Anybody help with the word ergomatic device in terms of putting in your hand? But it did a very exciting feature that customers weren't used to and were delighted by as well. And now you see a more recent version on the right. So we continue to iterate and make that service better. I'm going to jump into the idea of being misunderstood for a long time. So often when we think about our customers and we think about the services we want to bring out there, it may not be intuitive of why is Amazon playing in this field. I'll give you an example. If you've heard of Amazon Web Services is the cloud computing part of Amazon. We're going to touch a little bit more on that as we go through this talk. But when we first came out with that, people were saying, well, why is this e-commerce play, a bookseller, offering technology services? And the reason why is we realized that a problem that we were facing in terms of scaling and making features available was one that our customers were actually feeling as well too. So if we made that service available, maybe they'd love it and adopt it, and they sure have, to the point that today this one part of Amazon is a $30 billion US business. Now I'm going to talk about how we organize. So this was the other part about organizing in terms of innovation. So we have 4 areas: the mechanisms, our architecture, which I'll touch on, our culture, and then how we actually organize the people and how we organize our teams and empower them to come up with stuff. So first of all, if you haven't got the message, we work backwards from our customers. We're always working backwards from the customers, to the point that when we have our team meetings, even here with my team, we always try to make sure that we have at least one chair in the room that is empty, and that chair represents the customer. Because we could lose we could lose sight of what we're trying to do for our customers, talk about features, we might talk about new products, and then forget that actually at the end of the day, we're building for our customers. So to do this and to help center ourselves when we have an idea, we take this process. We ask ourselves these questions as we write in what we call a press release. This is not a press release that we're going to hand over to a news outlet. This is something that we use internally to help center our thoughts. And what we do in this case is we ask, who is the customer? Who are we trying to serve by this? Is there actually a customer behind this? Is there an opportunity that we're trying to work with our customers on, or a problem to help solve, or removing friction? Are there benefits? Is there a need or potential want? And what would the actual experience look like? So press release could be quite simple as this. This is an actual press release we did internally for the Kindle device in 2007. And this is how we wrote it. So it reads like a press release, and it helps center our thoughts. In addition to that, we actually do what we call an FAQ, or frequently asked questions. We do one internal for some questions that might come from multiple teams, and we have a team, a small team structure in the company, multiple small teams, and we also do an external one too to see what kind of questions might come out. Like for instance, how much would the device cost, or where would it be available, or who would distribute it? We'd do that type of FAQ as well too. And that helps us to get to a point where we can start kind of drawing out what the experience is. We can either build a prototype by hand or sketch something out as well too. The more developed the idea is, the more high fidelity you'll see in terms of the SketchUps here on the right versus the left. And what you'll notice here, I haven't talked about coding, I haven't talked about actual physical hardware prototyping yet. All we're doing right now is validating the idea, getting feedback from our peers and from the market as well too before we start investing in this. This takes a lot of upfront work, but it pays off in the long term too. And I believe as many of you guys are doing your startups, you probably take a very similar approach. I hope what you're not doing is coming up with an idea and then running out and seeing if you can get somebody to do the software development behind that. I would really stress try to get feedback, and then move towards development, even with yourselves. Get some of your coding skills out and get your laptops out and see if you can build it too. And this is the approach that we take. In terms of how our architecture as well too, so really quickly, this was the first Amazon website. Is there anybody in the room today that would buy anything from a website that looked like this? Anybody want to put up your hands? Even the same gentleman who walks into stores and takes things and walks out said no. He put both his hands down. Yeah, exactly. So this was the first site. But what it did is it allowed us to test our hypothesis. We put that out there, and then what we ended up getting was this idea that people would actually put their credit card in and buy. How this actually looked in terms of a few years later is we had this internal monolithic system called Obidos. Obidos is a fast-flowing river in the Amazon. And there's a town called Obidos, and it's a tributary, so it moves very quickly. But our internal architecture was very slow. So we realized that we had to break this up. And now this is the most exciting part of the presentation if this works. This was not done with machine learning. This was not done with artificial intelligence. This was done by just pure presentation skills. Did it work? There you go. So this is what we did. We broke up our architecture into multiple parts, and really what it looks like is multiple APIs where our customers, and we're internally as well too, we can grab the services we need to bring out solutions for our customers. Services like storage or databases, but also artificial intelligence or machine learning or blockchain or business analytics as well. So this is what it looks like today. These are the different services that we have, and I'll jump really quickly in terms of the final two ones, which are our culture. So in our culture at Amazon, we have these leadership principles. And these leadership principles, there's 14 of them, and they help guide us in hiring, they help us make decisions, and they also help us to ultimately get out the products and services that we bring for our customers. So a really important part of our culture. We also hire builders. This is a key point. When we meet people who want to work at Amazon and we want to come on board, we try to make sure that they can build things, that they can actually put things together. And you'll see why that's important as we move to the organization. We, and as many startups do, and I want to make sure you don't lose this as you start to grow, because at Amazon we feel like we're a startup. We have about 500,000 people, but we're a pretty large startup, but we feel like we're a startup. And as you go on your journey, we want to make sure that you have this sort of concept of building and experimenting as well too. So we hire builders that will experiment. We have this concept of making decisions quickly. And when we make a decision, we put a litmus test. And the litmus test is simply, is this a one-way door? If I walk through this, will I not be able to walk back? Most decisions in life are not one-way doors. There are a few. I won't get into them right now. But most of them are one-way doors. And then, so not one-way doors. Two-way doors are where you can come back as well too. So make a decision quickly. You can always come back in most cases. We learn from our failure. So this is a highlight of learning from failures and then continuing to build stuff as well. And this was the Amazon Echo device. So I'm going to summarize right now in terms of how we organize ourselves. I mentioned we have multiple small teams. We call them 2 pizza teams. These are teams that you could feed with 2 pizzas. They're small so that they can move quickly and they're empowered. And they work with, of course, other teams to bring out the services and products and solutions that we bring to our customers. To summarize this, we could have just put this one slide here and this would have summarized, but really the focus here is focus on your customer. Invent, constantly invent and iterate and bring new solutions, and be patient. It's not easy, and I know it's not easy doing a startup, but as you bring a new service out, definitely be patient. We're delighted to be working with startups across the world and in MENA. This is a super call out to many of the startups, and many of them are here today, by the way, as well, too. Please go introduce yourselves to them, or if you are one of those startups, talk to everybody. I do want to stress that we have an early stage startup program for startups. It's called Activate. We work with a lot of the accelerators and venture capitalists around the world and here in the Middle East. If you're here today and you're a VC or accelerator, please stop by our booth, and we're happy to get you started on that so you can offer this to your startups as well too. Thank you so much.